Now we're going to get straight into a story that I talked about yesterday because it's made headlines here in the UK over the past few days. We're talking about this Lily Allen controversy. First off, a lot of our American audience won't know who she is. Just explain who Lily Allen is and how this recent Twitter spat got started.
So Lily Allen is a Z-list pop star, and she's from a middle-class background, a wealthy background. I believe she went to private school throughout her life, and she tries to sell herself as a pop star of the people, of the working-class people. She does that with her lyrics, how she acts, how she behaves. She come to light mainly to do with politics, probably 3 or 4 months ago, when she travelled out to Calais. She went to the jungle, which is where all the refugees are. She cried her eyes out and she apologised to them all on behalf of her country, on behalf of all of us. She apologised to them and she said she's sorry that we blew their country up. These men are coming from Syria, a country that we haven't blown up, a country that's actually being torn in two because of Islam and sectarianism and Saudi Arabia. But she took it upon herself to apologise on behalf of all of us and do everything she can to get them into our country. She wants a complete open border policy. We then, after that, we saw a situation where so-called child refugees were being brought into the UK. Now, it's turned out that 474 of these so-called child refugees, some of them were actually as old as 29 and 30 years old. So that was where there was a big backlash against what she was saying and what she was doing many months ago. Now, most recently with myself this week, so after the attack in Istanbul on New Year's Eve, where 39 people were killed, and they still haven't caught him, have they? I believe. But after that attack, Lily Allen went online and she put a headline newspaper story where they called the man who'd done the killing a migrant. Yeah? And she said this was her only comment on the attack. Nothing about the negativity, nothing about the onslaught, nothing about the 39 people who are dead. Her comment was racism again. Look at this racism against the migrants. Now, so that's when
she didn't give a damn about all the people that had been brutally slaughtered while partying on New Year's Eve. That wasn't her main focus. Her main focus was being offended over a word, which was true anyway. I mean, he wasn't Turkish, he was a migrant. She didn't give a damn about any of the victims. That was her main focus.
That was her main focus. And at that point then, that's what I said. And she hadn't even read the article, because the article actually told you that they knew he wasn't Turkish. They knew he was a migrant. But again, it's the usual virtue signalling from someone of a celebrity status. I've had it over the last probably 3 months. I've had it with Piers Morgan, Gary Lineker, now Lily Allen, who, when you get into the debate with them, they can't debate. They literally, all 3 of those people have just called me a racist on their public profile. And then when I've gone into the argument with them to back up how I'm racist, what I've said that's racist, they block you. Lily Allen, now she says I'll be hearing from her solicitors because she lost the argument.
So she lost it because she lost the argument with you on Twitter. And they seem to have missed the last 3 or 4 years of discourse. The fact that calling somebody a racist or a bigot no longer constitutes an argument, not that it ever did, but we've now kind of established that after 4 or 5 years of consistently saying it, they still don't get that. Same thing with Gary Lineker. He doesn't have an argument. So she comes out, tries to pick this fight with you, loses the argument blatantly on Twitter. I saw it. And her response to losing the argument is to threaten legal action because she came out and said, oh, the migrant molestation crisis, which has happened in numerous major cities, cases, individual cases, mass cases, almost on a weekly basis now. She says that basically that's not a thing because she's never been molested by a migrant. So that's like me saying, oh, I've never had cancer, so let's not worry about cancer. And in fact, does cancer even exist? I mean, how ridiculous is that argument?
Well, it's ridiculous, and you're right. They're not aware that over the last 3 or 4 years, things have changed. Thankfully, they've changed. They're starting to change. And for 15, 20 years, they've been able to silence people with this exact tactic. Every celebrity, everyone at the high end of in the UK has been able to shut the working class people down with this racist stick and beat them back into their box. That sort of broke through now. You can see by any comment, as soon as Gary Lineker did it, or Piers Morgan, or Lily Allen, they were bombarded by the general public. They come under fierce attack by the general public who were telling them, we've had enough of this of trying to silence people with this tactic. And the thing with Lily Allen, why it gets me is Lily Allen, Gary Lineker. If you ever look where Gary Lineker lives, he lives in a multi-million-pound mansion. Lily Allen lived in a £4.2 million house. The house that she chose to buy was in the Cotswolds. So she didn't choose to buy a house in a multicultural or diverse community where her children would mix with all the cultures which she's welcoming in. She chose to buy a house in a completely, exclusively white community. So did Gary Lineker. Gary Lineker's children go to a private school. All of the people they want to invite into our country, whether that affects waiting time in hospitals, it will affect our waiting time in the hospital, they'll go private. Whether it affects whether our kids get to go to the most local school, because the schools are all completely full now because there's no more schooling places because we keep bringing more and more people in who want to have 5, 6, 7 and 8 children, that won't affect them either because their children will be in a private school. All the issues all the negative impact that will break down, whether it be little things like that, or whether it be Muslim rape and grooming gangs in our country, whether it be living side by side with terrorists. I'll talk about Luton again, where I'm from. The Stockholm bomber lived 3 doors up from my auntie. The most recent one where they were planning to shoot the American soldier dead, he lived near my cousin. We live with these people. This
well,
idea
apparently, Tommy, Luton is the most desirable place to live in Britain. I recently read. Isn't that the case?
I saw that. And do you know what? Do you know why that's so funny? Because out of my generation, there's not one person left. So I'm watching as everybody is running from the town. Everyone's running. And the only people buying the properties, when they're talking about this property boom, my friend, a builder I know, just built 40 flats in the town, all sold straight away, investors. Luton is selling to investors at an uncontrollable rate. The prices are rocketing up in Luton because it's only 22 minutes on the train. So for a rental market, you go into entire communities now when no one owns a house. They're all rentals. And then the council will get the rental contract and they'll put more immigrants in them and more immigrants in them. And that's what we're witnessing. So when it comes to most desirable place to live, everyone is packing their bags and running away from Luton. And if everyone's honest as to why they're doing it, there's one reason why they're doing it, and that's because of the Islamic takeover of the town.
And you mentioned earlier Lineker, Lily Allen living in all these white places. It's the same in any European country. The most vehement, strident advocates for mass immigration, whether it's politicians or celebrities, always live in the whitest areas possible. And it's the same with the recent Richmond by-election. Of course, they accused everyone, Brexit supporters of being horrible racists. These are the people who live in the whitest area of London. It's nothing but virtue signaling. They don't have to live amongst people who are impacted by mass immigration. They're never affected by it. Most of them only voted to remain so they could keep their cheap labor cleaners and personal help. I mean, these people are complete hypocrites. And again, as he said, it's virtue signaling. But with Lily Allen, I mean, have you actually received anything legally that suggests she's going to proceed with this ridiculous argument through the courts?
No, not yet. And the maddest thing is, when you go through all of our conversation, I didn't say anything that would have been illegal. She called me a racist, a sexist. She called me, she slandered me many times. I didn't slander her once. All I've done was question the legitimacy over what she was saying. And I asked her for evidence and to back it up. And one thing I did, which I did to her, which I do to everybody, is I asked her to come and spend some time in Luton with me and let me take her around families. I could take her to families who would sit there in front of her, and the horror stories she would hear would be far worse than what she's heard in Calais, with regards to their daughters, their sons, how they have to live, the fear they're living in. So I tried to ask her that. And also, one of the people I'd have loved to have met was when I was 10 or 11 years old, when the Bosnian conflict was on, we had the first refugees come to Luton, and they actually moved in a family. It was a son, a daughter and their mother, because their father was killed in Bosnia. They moved in on the same road as me. I become friends with the boy. I still know the lad now. Now, they were real refugees. They were real refugees. They've embraced our country. They've got great careers, both the son and the daughter, and they've become a great example. And if you'd look at our country, you'd feel proud of what our country done for them. Now, we're not saying we don't want refugees out of hatred in our hearts. What happened then is completely different to this invasion. It's completely different.
Tommy, it's the same with Sikhs. I mean, Sikhs are hated by a lot of the Islamists because generally speaking, they do integrate. They, you know, have bunting and Union Jack flags outside their celebrations. 52% of Sikhs voted for Brexit. So it's not about blanket opposition to any immigration whatsoever. It's about importing this hostile ideology that just doesn't fit with our culture.
Well, that's what I'd like to any one of these people. I'd say, come and spend some time in Luton with me, and you'd meet real people, and you'd get beyond your idea that you're pushing, and you don't, because in towns like Luton voted for Brexit, which shocked me. Leicester voted for Brexit. All the towns that are hugely affected by immigration voted for Brexit. All of them, which must mean that literally, when I look at the voting in Luton, I must think that literally every single non-Muslim resident must have voted to Brexit. Must have. But yeah, Lily Allen and all these people, and they're being exposed for what they are. I hope she does take me to court. Lily, if you're watching this, be in court.
It's this idea. I mean, even if you tag someone on Twitter, they treat that as harassment. They're taking it one step further, saying that now disagreeing with them is somehow a hate crime, and they're going to take you to court over it. We'll be back after the next segment with Tommy Robinson. We're going to talk about the Real Housewives of ISIS. This is the Alex Jones Show Live. Stay tuned. Tommy, the BBC reports that a man who placed bacon on the doors of a Bristol mosque has died in prison. This was about a week ago now, while serving a 12-month sentence. His name is Kevin Crean. They're saying it's not suspicious. What's the latest on this story?
He was sentenced to 12 months, as you've said. He put bacon on a door handle. Yeah, I get hugely, when I think about this case, obviously, you know, I've been in custody many times over the last 6 years. And he would have been so worried, so scared, so intimidated. The crime doesn't fit the punishment at all. It just doesn't fit. He was used as a scapegoat to instill fear into everybody else. Now, putting bacon on a mosque door handle, pretty stupid thing to have done. Yeah, pretty stupid thing to have done. Does it warrant a year in jail? Especially when we compare it, the same judge that sentenced him to 12 months in jail only sentenced a Somalian to 24 months in jail for raping a young English kid. So this case specifically, and specifically because some of your viewers, if you don't understand what it's like in the British prisons, just briefly, British prisons are now like ISIS training camps. When you get in there, the main gang, the only gang in control of everything is the Islamic gang. Yeah? And they're radicalising, they're recruiting, and they're enforcing Sharia with violence. They're taking jizya money, they're taking tax money off non-Muslims to stay safe. You have to really, until I went into prison, I don't think people on the outside can quite really understand just how bad it is in there. So having been in there and knowing that this man has been sentenced for something that would be seen as against Islam, yeah, I know the fear he would have faced and the gangs that would have wanted to target him. Now, yes, he has been found dead. The point I make is whether that was him being murdered, whether he killed himself, whether he got addicted to drugs, because another thing in our prison system, you should only send people there if it's going to benefit, if it's going to be some sort of rehabilitation to them, because our prison system doesn't attempt to rehabilitate you. It doesn't attempt to do anything. It's full of drugs. It's full of violence. Now, this man's crime just didn't fit that. It doesn't fit or warrant that. So whether he's gone to prison, I know men myself who I've grown up with in Luton who have gone into prison complete clean, never taken drugs. They've come out drug addicts and heroin addicts from prison. And when people are at their weakest and at their lowest, they're easy prey and they're vulnerable. And I'm still outraged. I know he's getting buried next week. I've had contact with his family. The judge and this decision against this, something should be done about it. There was another case recently in London where two Polish men shouted abuse at a mosque. And they were remanded. They were remanded in prison straight away. No bail. They were remanded. By the time they got to their court case, they had both
Tommy, hold that thought. We'll talk about that case after the break. Long segment coming up. Alex Jones Show Live, breaking news, Infowars.com. We're going to go back to Tommy Robinson. He is author of Enemy of the State. Most people don't know, Tommy, there's a huge Muslim prison population, not just in the United Kingdom, but basically in every major European country. We're talking about Belgium. They got a 6% Muslim population, a 45% prison population, Muslim males. France has a Muslim population of 6 to 10%. They have a prison population of 70% Muslims. Spain has a Muslim population of 3.7% and a prison population which comprises 70%. That's 70, not 17. So finish up your comments with Kevin Crean, but also, you know, given that we're told Islam is this religion that teaches young men to be pious and disciplined, why do so many of them end up in prison?
Well, the other thing is we're completely losing a war, which many people don't even understand is being fought. Whoever controls the streets controls the town. Yeah. So I've watched through my years as a youngster in my hometown of Luton. You'd have some very rough estates. You have a rough estate where there would be a fight back against the Islamisation, against the heroin gangs, against the sexual exploitation. In this predominantly white and black estate, they would fight back. What then happens is the most prominent gang members end up in prison from these estates, yeah, which aren't Muslim, they're white and black. Then when they're in prison, they radicalise, they convert. I mean, everyone converts, you don't understand. Like, no one really understands the scope of the problem unless they go there and see what's happening. Everyone is converting. So now, the difference we're at now to 10 years ago in Luton is all the young gang members, even in the non-Muslim areas, are now Muslim. They're white, they're black, they're converted, they're part of this one ummah, this one big gang. And then the resistance in those estates to tackle and stop what was happening is gone. It's gone. And people don't even understand the concept of this is organised. This prison radicalisation, this prison conversion, all of these things are organised. There's actually a price. If Muslims convert a prisoner in jail, they get sent money into them. They get sent money in. And the level of and the scope of the problem in the prison, I was in a maximum security prison called Wood Hill. Wood Hill houses some of the country's most feared terrorists. Now, a non-Muslim had been in an altercation in a jail in the other end of England, yeah? He'd been transferred out for his own safety because he was going to get violently attacked. Now, literally, the next morning he walked into this prison in Wood Hill, and within seconds, he was violently stabbed. Now, the prison officer said, the prison guard, the officer said, the only way that message could have got that quickly from there to there is through the imam. The only way they could have passed a message to get him for messing with Muslims or messing with Islam was through the imam. And the prison authority knew that. They knew that the imam is going around telling people there's a man coming here, he's done this, get him. And that's happened, I've watched most recently again, and non-Muslims are being fed like lambs to slaughter across our prison system. And until one of them are brutally murdered and butchered or even beheaded in a prison, that's when people may want to stop and try and start and do something about it. But most recently, I don't know if you saw the case up in Rotherham, where we had the protesters, where 19 Muslims were arrested and put on trial for attacking a pub. Well, the 19 Muslims got off because their community come together, every left-wing activist, politician, all of them fought for their defence. 5 non-Muslims were put in jail for exactly the same case. If you watch the footage, they did nothing. They got attacked. They were put in prison for the same case. I follow every comment and what's going on to see if they're okay. All of them have been violently beaten. All of them have come under attack. And that's happening across our prison system. That happened, exactly the same happened with me. Just handed to them on a plate. Hand it to them, hurt him, do what you want to him. Now, and that's exactly what with Kevin Crean. He should never ever forget. Even if he has died, that's the judge's responsibility. But how can we have a man in the UK? How can we have an English man put in prison for 12 months when, if the prisons were safe, then that's not right. But when the prison system, the authorities, the governors, the politicians, everyone is fully aware of just how bad the problem is with Islam in prison, and yet still we put this man in there for putting a bit of bacon near a mosque. It disgusts me. It's contempt, and I'm so outraged that every single person who played their part in that, which mainly is a non-Muslim judge, who's handed him on a plate to them. Handed him on a plate. And my thing that frustrates me about it is I know how terrified he would have been because I was terrified. So I know the fear he would have had. I know the fear his mum would have had because my mum had the same. I know the fear his whole family would have had, and worrying every night about whether he's going to be okay, whether they're going to get him today, whether today's the day he gets hurt. And he's ended up dead.
It's absolutely disgraceful. And the other thing people don't realize is they call it jihadi cool. They've kind of merged this black gangster criminality culture with Islamism, and you see that now playing out in the prison. So that's how they use it to lure young people. And as you know, all the stats show, young people are even more likely to radicalize than older Muslims now. But we're going to move on from that one particular issue onto this BBC clip, which I was absolutely shocked that they even had the balls to air this in the first place. They broadcast a comedy skit called The Real Housewives of ISIS. We're going to play a clip, and I'll get your comments after, Tommy. Here's the clip.
Coming up this season on The Real Housewives of ISIS.
It's only 3 days till the beheading, and I've got no idea what I'm going to wear.
Abdul seduced me online. He had me at free healthcare. So this is my 6th marriage. I've been widowed 5 times. 6 times.
I'm so glad I've moved over here. It's everything those guys on the chat rooms told me it would be, and it's full of so many wonderful surprises. Didn't have to do this in Birmingham. Bullshit!
Are you ready, girls?
Yeah.
Hang on, I'm recording it for Instagram. Ta-da! What do you think?
Oh, man surprised me with it yesterday.
Hashtag OMG, hashtag Jihadi Jane, hashtag death to the West ISIS emojis.
Oh, babes, I love it. You look gorgeous. She looked massive. You're gonna need a lot of Semtex to kill that one.
Oh, guys.
Hey, ladies! What do you think of this?
Awkward.
What a complete bitch. She knew I had that jacket. Copies everything. Copied this.
Oh my God, it was so cringe. Hashtag matchy matchy.
It's times like this I wish I'd never moved out here.
Coming up next week.
He won't stop talking about his 40 virgin. Why can't he be happy with me?
Ali bought me a new chain, which is 8 foot long. So I can almost get outside, which is great.
Now, the reaction to that was vociferous, as you would expect from these permanently offended Twitter outrage mobs. You had leftists, you had Islamists droning on about how offended they were. Tommy, if Islam has nothing to do with ISIS, as they constantly tell us, why would anyone be offended over someone making fun out of ISIS?
Well, because we know Islam has everything to do with ISIS. But I've seen some of the comments saying that, yeah, all so-called moderate Muslims getting outraged and offended because someone's mocking an extremist, radical, terrorist organisation. Insanity. And that's the thing. We're fair game to be mocked. Our religion, our culture, our identity, everything about us has been fair game for decades to be ridiculed and abused in any way you want. Nothing at all to do with Islam has ever been fair game or acceptable to mock or have a laugh about. And this is one of the first things they've actually done, which is great. It's good. And I'm shocked it's the BBC, same as what you said. I'm shocked by it. But yeah, the best thing to do with groups like ISIS and to do with Islam is mock it, because it deserves mocking.
I had a tweet that I responded to on Twitter in regard to this. This was a Muslim woman, full hijab and everything. She said about this BBC clip, "I don't find my religion funny. I don't find a show mocking it funny either. ISIS or not, you're still mocking Islam, whether extreme or not." And Tommy, I basically responded, said, newsflash, we're still free in the West to mock a belief system without being beheaded. That's the attitude that they're trying to import. We saw it with the reaction to Charlie Hebdo, the reaction to the Garland shooting. They want to import this ideology, which makes it basically a hate crime to mock a set of beliefs. It's akin to saying that you can't make fun out of Scientology, because as you said, with regard to the prison radicalization, Islam is not a race, correct?
But they've been very successful in making it, in being able to do this, because you actually can't mock it in many places at many times. As I said, prison system is one of them. You couldn't say a word against Islam in the prison system, you'd be killed. The police will come down on you in many terms or find any way to silence you if you begin to try and mock it in a public sphere. Whether it be Twitter deleting you or suspending you, Facebook closing you down. They've been quite successful in introducing this sort of blasphemy law. So when the BBC go and do this, I think it's great that they have done it. And I think that, as you said, Islam is an idea. This is what many of our opposition can't get their head around. It's just an idea. It's a very bad idea. It's an idea that you can change your mind. You can leave it. Well, you can leave it if you live in one of the Western democracies. If you live in an Islamic country, you'd be punished by getting killed. But yes, it's an idea. It's a bad idea. It's an idea that we should be, at this moment now more than ever, ridiculing, looking at and exposing all the negative points of it so that people understand it. The problem we have with so many people, not just non-Muslims, but many Muslims as well, they don't even understand Islam themselves. They don't understand the terrible deeds and the immoral actions of their prophet. They don't understand, I don't think they understand the agenda of Islam. So many of them are just born Muslim. I have this through the years. I meet Muslims all the time, whether it be for debates or interviews or anything. And I sit and go through things that their prophet did, and they're gobsmacked. They have no idea. They had no idea. So it's just like many Christians before. Many Christians probably don't know all the words of the Bible. They don't know the full story of Jesus. Many who are born Christian, who are just born into it. That's the same with Muslims. And I think the more we expose it, the more they understand, then hopefully the more of them leave. And to be honest, Paul, I've had this week alone, there was one boy who threatened to kill my family just a number of years ago. It made the national newspapers in England. He sent me a big, massive essay this last week saying how sorry he is, how he apologises so much. He was a black Muslim. And he couldn't understand when he started looking into what Muhammad said about black people. This is what got him. What Muhammad said about black people. And he sent me a big, massive essay saying he hopes I accept his apology. He did not understand Islam. He didn't understand what his prophet did. He spent the last 2 years researching, reading the biography of Muhammad by Ibn Ishaq, looking into everything which I'd been telling him to look into online. And he's now gladfully and thankfully left Islam. And I think there'll be more and more Muslims that will do that when they understand the true nature and the violent rhetoric of their founder.
And of course, one of the other problems that we constantly need to combat is the fact that these left-wing groups like Hope Not Hate list Muslim reformers like Majeed Nawaz and Ayaan Hirsi Ali as anti-Muslim bigots. So in many cases, we're up against the big institutionalized foundations that prevent nominal Muslims looking to leave the religion from speaking out against it, because then they get a huge target painted on their back. But we got a few minutes left here, Tommy. I just want to get to a final question. We didn't see a mass molestation in Cologne. We didn't see a repeat of it because of the huge police presence. We did see incidents in Frankfurt, Innsbruck, and other European cities. But what got me was, given what happened in Cologne last year, knowing that there'd be this huge police presence, knowing that they'd be putting themselves at risk of arrest, why on earth did these hundreds of Muslim migrants show up to the very same spot in Cologne once again this year?
Because they don't care. Because they do not care at all. They have not one bother in them. And the truth is, if there wasn't 1,500 police officers at Cologne Station, we'd have seen exactly the same. We all know that now. The German authorities know that. The public know that. If there wasn't in every single city across Europe thousands of police officers and military put on duty, we'd have seen huge problems, massive problems across the globe, across Europe. But and again, it comes a point. At what point do we not have enough police to deal with it? Because each year the problem's going to get worse, as we know, with the invasion that's happening. The only where I feel in a lot better position than we were 7 years ago, I feel quite happy and I can smile about it, because what you've witnessed with the political revolution in America, you witnessed it with Brexit. We know Geert Wilders is going to get in power. If they manage to stop Le Pen this time, if they do, because what I can't believe is what they do with her election is when she wins, the other parties will all drop out so that they'll all conspire to vote for the one against Le Pen. Now that ain't democracy anyway. That's not democracy. But whether they are successful again this year in doing that, in 4 years' time they won't. There's a political revolution underway, and I'll sit there happy knowing that we're on the right side of it. And there's nothing that any of the left-wing groups, there's nothing that the people funding CNN, there's nothing that the Saudis, there's nothing the police anywhere can do to stop it, which is why I sit and it gives me a great satisfaction knowing what's about to happen.
Oh, we're making huge strides. I've seen that over the past year. We're really winning the narrative, and that's why you see these populist parties having this great success. Finally, just in the final 30 seconds, Tommy, tell people where they can find you on Twitter and where they can get your book.
So you can get my book on Amazon. It's the paperback copy is only available in England, but you can buy the online version at any of the Amazons. And my Twitter handle is Tommy Robinson New Era. So thank you. And thanks, Paul. Thanks, Kim.
And the book is Enemy of the State, and there goes Tommy Robinson.